Okay, this session is going to look at digital identity, opportunities in digital identity. So we all want to travel seamlessly through the airport. So this session is going to look at to what extent is that happening and why is it not happening across the industry. We're also going to look at, in addition to seamless travel, what other benefits digital identity has for the industry. So I'd like to first hand over to Gabriel Marquie, our Head of Digital Identity, who will be followed by Louise Cairney, Head of Customer Experience and Facilitation. She's going to talk about how digital identity will help with inadmissible passengers. And then finally, Nick Careen, who you've heard from before, our SVP of Operations, Safety and Security, on how digital identity has the opportunity to help us mix domestic and international passengers at the airport and improve efficiency of infrastructure. So Gabrielle, over to you. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Catherine, for the introduction, and well, really pleased to be here today. So when we look at the key trends that are shaping or redefining the travel experience, there are two things around, smartphones and biometrics. Smartphones are for us to take action when and where convenient for us. So that might be when we're stuck in traffic or when we are home. And today it's nothing new. It's mainly about booking a flight or checking in or doing that check-in that we didn't have time to do before. And biometrics actually are for us to keep that smartphone, that boarding pass, that passport, wherever they are, lost in our backpack when we walk through the airport. And actually, well, smartphones are a bit of an old trend, but what they were there is because today passenger demand that their smartphone do more. And actually from our latest passenger journey, actually almost 8 out of 10 people want their smartphone to do more for them, combining digital wallet, digital passport, loyalty card, when they go through all the process from book, shop, book, pay, and navigate throughout the airport. And when we look at the younger generations, actually this goes even higher to almost 9 out of 10 people, which means that when we build for the future, we need to build for them. So the message is clear, obviously. That had to happen, sorry. The message is clear when we talk to travelers. They want, the message is consistent. They want convenience, fast and simple processes throughout the airport, no repeated document check, and simply walk seamlessly to their plane. And digital identity is the foundation for that, because it enables the identity to be verified once and reused throughout the journey. So let's take a minute to dig a bit into what I mean when I say digital identity is the foundation for seamless journey. Actually, when we look at all our processes, from the time we book, we shop, we book, we pay, we check in, we backdrop, we go through security, we cross the border, we board the plane. At every step, the question is the person who they claim to be at that touch point? Today, this is based on paper IDs, which means that there is a need for a physical inspection of the document. And even though the biometric passport contains all the necessary data in the chip, that data cannot be presented in advance. So having digital identity, for instance, digital passports that are trustworthy, that have the same level of government backing as a physical passport and can be presented in advance, is what enables fully digitalization of the travel. And maybe just let me clarify something. It doesn't mean that physical passports are going to go away. It just means that for most people that want to enjoy biometric processing, they will be able to keep it in their pocket as they cross the airport. And even when we talk about border crossing, Only selected people might be asked to present their physical passport, while the rest of us, 99.9% of the travelers, will be able to walk through the airport recognized with biometrics. So there are three major efforts that are shaping the digital identity ecosystem in travel, and these might be not fully connected and often built independently. So we've got the government building national digital identity schemes. You've got ICAO defining how passport data can be represented digitally. And you've got the airline industry with OneID defining a seamless customer journey from shop to airport biometric processing. And the challenge, but also the opportunity we've got, is to bring these three dimensions together to build that future world of seamless digital travel together. So, actually, beyond the US, if you ever travel domestically in India using the GJatra app, for instance, or flown via Hong Kong or many other airports, you've probably experienced biometric processing for yourself. Many touch points offer facial recognition, leveraging digital identity-based tokens. And this enables faster processing, fewer document checks, and reduced queuing. There, the industry vision is to make that available to all travelers, no matter their journeys. So if we try to be a bit more specific on what's missing for that to scale globally. So today, you might get biometric processing in your departing airport, but not at your transfer or arrival airport. Or actually, when you go arrive at your transfer airport, you might have to queue at a kiosk to register for biometric processing at that specific airport. What we mean by having this scale globally is basically being able to let the traveler do the necessary before they get to the airport and then enjoy seamless travel throughout their journey, no matter what this journey is. And for that, we need digital credentials that are either government issued or private sector issued, backed with by government, that are formatted to globally recognized standards, and that can be used across borders, not within a single airport or given program. And that's where actually the ICAO digital travel credential comes into play. So the digital travel credential is a representation of your passport data. And if I'm a bit more precise, it's actually the exact copy of what's contained in the chip of your biometric passport. So it's secure, it's based on government-signed data, and globally standardized. And with that, it solves quite a few things. It creates a common format for digital identity, ensure trust between government, airline, and airports, and enable biometric travel using authoritative data. It's got some small issues that need to be ironed out, but we sure that with the collaboration we've been talking about, we'll be able to sort them out. But now these digital travel credentials, they need to materialize. Government are setting up national identity or digital identity schemes that mainly aim at digitalizing services within their own borders. The DTC converts the passport data into an ICAO standard for crossing borders, and as a traveler, you need both to be able to enjoy seamless travel, no matter what your journey is. And with that, that will ensure global trust and security and enable cross-border interoperability. So unfortunately, in a nutshell, so far, no government have issued digital travel credential, though some pilots are underway in Finland, the Netherlands, and EU through the EU Digital Identity Wallet. And maybe let's stop 1 minute on this last one, why the EU Digital Identity Wallet matters. So for those of you who might not know, the EU is building a framework for government-backed digital identity wallets that can store both national digital identity cards and eventually ICAO formatted passport data. So private actors, including airline, can interact with it, and with that, it could become some sort of a blueprint for global digital travel wallet. And actually, so in the today, so as you might probably have guessed, sorry, I need to use my biometrics there. I already have my French ID card in my French EU digital identity wallet. So I could have there, along with it, already a mobile driving license or a mobile vehicle registration. And actually, in this next phase of pilot that the EU has just launched under the Aptitude Consortium, it will be having 2 work packages that are of high interest for the airline industry, a digital travel credential work package, and a ticket and check-in work package. So what it means is that basically countries in Europe will test how, along with my ID card, I can have that famous digital passport copy. So that's the first thing, how the government can issue it there. Then test how I can use that digital passport copy in booking, check-in, and boarding processes. And not just that, but also test how it can be used to cross borders. So I've taken the French example, but there are many more countries involved in that exploration. And this pilot is to be completed by 2027. Now, well, this will have to scale beyond pilots, obviously, to bring tangible benefits to the industry. And this will require collaboration. So government, ICAO, wallet providers, and the aviation industry must align to make this a reality, but the technology is ready, and it's alignment that will unlock global digital travel. So if I just pick up three dimensions there that need to be moved forward, government must make digital identity usable for travel. So if I just take my little example, I need to be able to present the digital passport that would eventually be contained into this app when I'm outside of EU. And also, whoever I present it to will need to be able to recognize it as a French digital passport. That sounds obvious, but that's not a given. So every government will have to ensure that their implementation enable just that. Then, beyond that, ICAO, government, and aviation must align on one global standard. So we've already spoken about one, but things need to converge. So it's not just the digital travel credentials that need to be standardized, but it's everything else that goes around it for global interoperabilities that need to be sorted out, and for instance, transfer protocols. And finally, well, this kind of collaboration take time to start and execute. So collaboration must start now. And government working on national digital identity schemes need to make sure they work with their local airline to prioritize travel use cases from shop to board your plane. And always the right way to do it is with privacy and security at the center from the start. So We talked a lot about biometric processing, but actually digital identity may be applied across the customer journey, as I've started to info. And I would just like to give you one example in each category, because I've overlooked that so far. So from the time you shop for a flight, you could more easily get personalized offers through any channel by just simply presenting a digital card. So it could be a student entitlement, for instance, or actually has been explored in the past, securing availability of a wheelchair with a disability or reduced mobility credential. When you book, actually you could in one click give all the necessary passport detail without waiting for checking. This will enable the airline to actually have the right information to guide the passenger with proper document requirements long enough in advance so that the traveler has plenty of time to prepare and can arrive with peace of mind at the airport. In the payment flow, one-click checkout, we're quite familiar with it, but there is also enablement of instant bank transfer much more seamlessly and securely, along with other options. And finally, to complete the digitalization before getting into the biometric processing, finalizing that passport and visa checks, leveraging digital credential if this was not done before. So actually, to end up on a positive note, with everything we've seen is that steps are taken for digital passport to be widely used by the end of the decade. So if I may just give you a bit more insight behind the three bullet points you've got there. Actually, this year, TSA started to accept the freshly released Apple and Google digital copy of the US passport. At more than 250 security touchpoints across the US for domestic travel. We were talking about the EU. By the end of next year, all EU member states will have to provide digital identity wallet to their citizens and residents that are interoperable across the region, so making digital identity wallet available across an entire region of the world beyond what's already out there. And to the point I was mentioning before, in October 2027, EU will have completed its testing of issuing the ICAO digital travel credential into such a government wallet. So with all these steps, everything is in place for digital passport to be widely available and used by the end of the decade. But digital identity isn't just about smooth travel. You might have got some hint of it, but it will also make aviation more efficient and safer. So with that, I would like to leave the floor to my colleague, Louise.
Thank you, Gabriel, and hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very aware of the time, and there's only a few presentations standing between. We're standing up here between you and the apéro hour, so we'll try and get through this next stage. Now, it doesn't look like I'm here to talk about digital identity and hot topics in digital identity, but I reassure you that I am. And I'm going to start off considering some of the costs of the industry not digitising in this space. And that's looking at the situation we have globally with inadmissible passengers. In the industry, they're referred to simply as INADs, but they refer to those passengers who, for a variety of reasons, are denied entry into a country when they arrive or even during transit for a whole number of different reasons. And this can be improper documentation, They don't have the right visas that they need for the destination. They don't have the right ETAs. They don't have the right, the correct passport validity that you require. I think everyone in this room will know when you're a frequent traveller, you know, to check things like visa and how much passport expiry time can I have to go where I'm going. Infrequent travellers don't know this. Often travellers who have no ill intent can be turned away, can be inadmissible at a port of entry. We also have illegal attempts, those who are attempting to cross borders for nefarious purposes, who are using illegally obtained documents, forged documents, counterfeit documents, stolen documents where they're an imposter. And then there's other reasons. There's a number of other reasons for inadmissibles that the airlines don't necessarily know about, even though they're ultimately responsible for them. And this can be certain watch lists that exist among authorities and other bodies globally. It could be failing immigration interviews on arrival. It could be any number of reasons that people are deemed inadmissible and the reasons never given to the airline. And so what numbers are we talking about here? We have started a study. We're going deeper into it because of what we've discovered in the initial study undertaken this year. We surveyed 49 airlines, 49 of our member airlines from all regions to get a deeper look into, in 2024, how many inadmissibles were there? And the number's quite alarming. The total number of passengers, as you see there, 969 million. I'm not going to try and finish that. I feel very challenged by such big numbers. And the total number of inads was over 111,000. So with a little bit of maths, we can deduce that this is 12 inadmissible passengers for every 100,000 passengers. It's a far greater problem than perhaps we'd realised. And this is one of the reasons why we are going deeper into this study to break down into understanding more of what's involved in this and how this is happening. Behind that, inadmissible passengers create disruption. They create travel disruption within the ecosystem, within the flow of what happens in an airline's operation. It involves rebookings. It involves actual delays. It involves a number of disruptions within the normal course of the operations of the airline. And these disruptions also add cost. So what is the cost? What do inads cost the industry? Inadmissible passengers result in fines and penalties and consequences on airlines by authorities. These fines can be, in some instances, up to $25,000. They do vary state to state and country to country. Some are very black and white in applications, some not. It's a broad world where these regulations are all sovereign rights of the states that uphold them. But it's not just the fines and penalties, it's the other costs involved. It's the indirect and direct logistical costs. It's the costs of rebooking. It's the cost of accommodation and care for a passenger if they can't be immediately returned to their original point of destination. There are situations where airlines are paying for inadmissible passengers to be staying in an airport hotel. You all remember that movie, The Terminal, with, was it Tom Hanks? Yeah. He was an inadmissible passenger for reasons outside everyone's control. Many in the situations of illegal attempts at entry, they need an escort, and that's an airline staff member. You have seat spoilage, you have a range of different impacts on cost. I can't give you a one cost. I wish I could. I hope to stand up here next year and give you that picture as we continue the study. But I think it's important for us to start looking at this a little bit closer, because bringing it back to what Gabriel has shared with us in respect of digital identity, one of the big solutions to this issue lies there. And it's something you're no stranger to in this room, which is One ID. We often think of One ID as simply the biometrics, But the beauty of the technology, that is digital identity, allows passengers to arrive at the airport having undertaken all of those document checks in advance. If we're using a digital identity ecosystem, the rate of inadmissibles for those ones that are human error or for documents that are fraudulently issued, for a vast number of the reasons we know we have inadmissible passengers, can be mitigated by using this technology and applying it consistently. How it looks, there's two ways. There's the one way that the industry would really like to see, where in fact it's not the airline agent standing at the check-in counter at the airport, current world looking at a great big queue, that's having to make the decision on whether or not a person is going to meet the requirements to cross that border. No, it's a situation where using the digital identity technology, a passenger can exchange all of their travel requirement information directly to the government, and the government can issue them back to their digital identity wallet a token that shows that they meet the expectations. That token can be shared with the airline. Simple. Okay to fly. Get on the plane. That's wishful thinking, and I expect I'll be long retired before we see that at scale. And what we do have is the interim solution, where airlines can guide passengers through using digital identity technologies to derive their credentials, such as what Gabrielle's explained, and get those affirmations before that passenger arrives at the airport. It will mitigate the fraud, it will mitigate the security risks, it will make for a far smoother travel experience for all of us, and it will be a lot cheaper as well. And with that, I will hand over to Nick.
Thanks. Okay, for an industry that thrives and survives on acronyms, DIPIP, Domestic and International Passenger Integration Program. Okay, so to put this in the simplest terms, for many of you that have been here before, you would have heard me rant and rave about this physical separation that we see when we travel through the airports. You know, that glass wall, when you see people on the other side, you wonder where they're going and why you're not allowed to integrate with them. So we believe that after whining about it, we came up with a program or a study to illustrate how it could be done. So today, the situation is pretty clear. There's a requirement for a mandatory separation between domestic and international passengers. There's an additional infrastructure required as a result of that, whether that's escalators or glass walls or separate terminals. And obviously, because of the fact that that integration does not exist, it results in duplicate resources, whether that's security personnel, customs personnel, ground staff, etc. So the vision, integrate. So a seamless shared terminal experience for everybody. Integration of the domestic and international travelers, shared departure lounges for the airlines that make best use of that, flexible gate allocation, which would allow for an international departure and then domestic arrival potentially in the long run, and a seamless transfer for all passengers, because it'll certainly speed up the minimum connection times and a number of other benefits, which I'll get into in a second. Can only be done, however, with the acceptance of biometric technology. Very simple process. So both Gabrielle and Louise touched on some of this already, but in this case, it would be really easy. You would enroll, the passenger enrolls to validate its identity. Logical segregation would exist without physical barriers, allowing for full access to everywhere in the terminal. And you would reconcile with your biometric at touch points, whether that is often the excuse raised by regulators and government and airports, for that matter, for not doing this was duty-free. Well, this can be handled with the use of biometric reconciliation, and obviously boarding as well to ensure compliance. What are the benefits? Well, capital expenditure is one of them. So we definitely can sweat the asset better. I have a slide on that, but essentially the slide indicates that you are looking at a 20 to 30% improvement on the sweating the asset that you have by being able to better utilize the capacity of the aircraft, or the airline, or the airport rather, thus reducing CapEx, operating expense, reduce ground handling staff, utility costs, fuel. Passenger experience would be better because faster processing, minimum connection times would improve. There'll also be greater access to retail options and restaurants that are currently divided between one terminal to the other. Revenue, obviously there's an opportunity for airlines to increase revenue because they could actually utilize the aircraft more. If you can turn from a domestic, you can avoid tolls, you can avoid additional taxi time, and you will be able to move more passengers through the terminal building. And it's sustainable on the airline fuel side. So just this slide, a lot of lines, and basically you want to focus on the gradient area to the pink line. That's essentially what you would get in terms of additional capacity and throughput by being able to utilize that by putting in international and domestic customers together. So a solution, I'd mentioned, first we would do from a baseline standpoint, it's only an airport-only system. It doesn't need to be interoperable with another airport. It would mean signing up for the biometric and use in that airport. Eventually, and sort of more akin to what Gabriel was alluding to and that Louise mentioned in the One ID, getting to the sort of end state integrated where we start to be able to use it, data sharing within the airport itself. And ground handlers, and eventually the whole end state, which we would be in the euphoria where we're utilizing digital identity for virtually everything, including the passenger being ready to fly, but as well as advanced information, which would unlock and improve safety and security, which Gabriel mentioned earlier. This is a no-brainer. It will make things better. It will make things faster. It is obvious. And we have luckily seen a lot of interest so far from a lot of airports that are interested in understanding this better. If you're really interested in the information that's available online, the study and some other pieces of information as well. And we launched this at the WPS in Istanbul at the beginning of November, and like I said, we've got a lot of interest so far, and expect that this will be something coming to an airport near you in the not too distant future. Thanks.
Thanks, Gabriel, Louise, and Nick. Any questions? Yep.
Dan Kramer, Travel Media, the Netherlands. I'm looking at the word global. I can see how this works. If governments actually work this out and then take it back to the airlines and airports, I can see this working on key routes with high-end airlines, high-end airports. But how realistic is it if you have to implement it with airlines that have barely any money, smaller airports, airports that do not have any money? Can this be done?
Well, I think it is obvious that the larger airports and more industrialized or affluent, for lack of a better term, locations would be first. And I think the efficiencies gained by implementing these programs, India is a good example. Some places where IDs need to be implemented can skip steps versus us retrofitting from where we are today. Some other places that are starting from basically nothing will be able to implement this and skip, like I said, a number of steps. So I think the positive business case associated with this would be applicable to not only the larger carriers and airports, but also to the medium-sized and smaller ones as well.
Really, but how much of an investment would that be? And what time frame are we looking at?
Well, I think investment is not significant in terms of the passenger because 90% of the customers have phones to begin with. Governments are heading in this direction on the digital identity side, regardless. So that cost is not a burden on the airport or the airline. And the airlines and airports are already investing in biometric technology as it stands today. The problem is it's just not tied together at this point in time. So it's not a significant cost burden. I don't know if we've done any specific studies, Gabriel, in terms of cost of implementation at this point. No, but it's a valid question, but it's not something that we foresee as being an overly cost burden to implement.
Yeah, Nick, surely the issue with what you're suggesting is you require 100% passenger participation, regardless of whether it's costless to people. I mean, you haven't got 100% digital cash money use, have you, spent payments? So it's difficult to see how you would get to that. And just more generally on having a global system of seamless travel and recognition and so on, look at the cacophony of different solutions there were when it came to COVID restrictions, COVID vaccine certification, etc. What possible reason do you have to think that there'll be harmonisation on this?
Well, you can talk about the harmonisation. I could add to it too, but I'm sure Louise will cover it. But as far as DPIP goes, not every airport's going to implement this, that's for sure. But we're not asking, it's not complicated. And if it's mandated, people will do it. You know, we say that I was around when we didn't have any boarding advanced or kiosks for check-in. And when we implemented them, you know, it was, nobody's going to use it. Well, guess what? We don't even need them anymore. So I think the concept will take some time. I think there will be some airports and locations around the world where they're more likely to be able to ensure their customers follow it. And then gradually it'll spread. I really believe that it'll take time, but it will be something that we'll see in our lifetime. Yeah.
I would add too, in talking about everything coming together to harmonise in the standard space, and that would be, we already see this in travel with the passport. It's probably one of the most clearest standardised documents that exists, the clearest. It's been standardised since 1920. By the League of Nations, and it's now an ICAO standard. And every country in the world adheres to that because they know it has to meet that standard to be accepted at other borders. The same will happen for the digital. What we're doing is making sure we're in a position to pivot to whatever that standard might be, while giving our industry standards to allow them to reap the benefits this technology can bring. In the interim, I 100% have confidence we'll get to the harmonisation. Okay.
Any other questions? Yep.
One more. The INETs, the high number, as you said, this is globally, but did you research it regionally as well? And where's the biggest number of them?
It's a good question. Off the top of my head, I couldn't say which number had the highest, which region had the highest number, but I can say that the highest cost was in Europe. And even between carriers, some carriers had very, very low number of INADs, others had high. There was quite some difference in different places. There was also states that had exceptionally high number of inadmissibles, but then you look at geopolitics around why that might be, and there's a lot to unpick. It's one of the reasons we are going to go much deeper with this study to understand all of the factors and the costs of managing inadmissibles. Thank you.
Perfect. Any final questions? No? Yeah.
أشرف الحديدي, الأهرام newspaper, Egypt. What about the cooperation between governments and IATA and ICAO to support airlines for digital transformation to provide a smoother travel experience?
Sure. So Well, actually, so I referred to a few pilots on digital travel credential. So actually, in there, so Netherlands, Finland, and the EU Digital Identity Wallet. Pilots all work with various airlines, so KLM, Finnair, and Lufthansa, respectively, so far. So usually we see that indeed there is close collaboration whether they are DTC pilot. And on the IATA side, so we've got some liaison with ICAO that are established, where we bring the voice of all the airlines on the facilitation matter, including the digital travel credential. So that is in place. It happens. We just need to reinforce it as right now there's a bit of critical time to get everything over the line.